Hello, everybody. My name is Petra Mayer and my company, Petra Mayer and Associates Consulting. And today I'm super thrilled to have with us JoAnne Marlow. JoAnne is an employee retention specialist. She has her own company, and you can find her at joannemarlow.com or, of course, on LinkedIn. And today we will have some time to talk about retention strategies and tap into JoAnne's experience there. Welcome, JoAnne. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Petra. This is an honor. Thanks so much.
Now, JoAnne, you have worked successfully with companies to hire new talent who stays with the company for a long time. And I've chatted to you about this, and I know that you're passionate about hiring long-term employees. Why is this so important to you?
Well, when businesses hire new recruits, their intention is, they're going to last 2, 5 years, maybe longer. And, that's really old-fashioned thinking, sadly. But, with some of the generations, they sort of say, yeah, I'm here 6 to 18 months, that's it. And their goal is to gather to see if they like the company, to see if their strengths are being used properly. And I think what a waste of time and money that is. So what's really important is not how do we retain people in a company, but how do we hire them so that we know that they are the hand to our glove and that it fits perfectly. And that can be done. It's just a lot of businesses are making mistakes when they hire, and they keep them longer than they should. So, they really don't realize the high cost of making a mistake. And it's not always their fault. It could be that they're not asking the right questions so that the recruit is just, on the surface. And I look at hiring and a person's personality like an iceberg. You only see the top 10%, but what we're really hiring for is that bottom 90%, because that's where all the attitudes, the behaviors, the values, their purpose, that's what's hidden in there. And by proper questioning, we can actually get that out of them and say, is this the person that I want? Is this who I want to model for our company? And if I may, I've mentioned costs. A lot of CEOs and business leaders really, they say, oh, I just lost another employee and our sales manager has just told me he's got a new offer somewhere else. And they go, ah. But I think I have seen eyebrows almost fly up off their heads when I say, do you know how much that's costing you? So just as a quick example, anyone who is in the retail or hospitality industry and they're paying minimum wage, every single time a person walks out that door, it's going to cost the company a minimum of $10,000 to hire someone and get them up to training, up to snuff. And that has absolutely nothing to do with the extra work you're putting on your employees, the stress if you fired that other person, oh my gosh, am I next? That kind of thing. Productivity typically goes down because they're just overcome with extra work. A couple of examples. I remember one of my clients who said, oh, he said, I know I've got a problem. He said, but I think it's because of communication, or I think maybe they need more training. Our managers need more training. I'm pretty sure they're due for that. And I said, well, what's showing up for you that you think you have a problem? He said, well, revenue keeps going up every month, but what's happening is my profit margin is going down. So I actually went in and I did a really thorough investigation. I'm old school, so I love to do a face-to-face, even if it's through Zoom. I spend about 45 minutes with the leadership team, and I ask them really deep questions, and develop a rapport where, as a certified life coach, I can't divulge anything that they say to me, and I guarantee that. So anything that I take back to the CEO is, there is some concern by some employees about this. And what I found with this particular client is the problem was not communication or training. It was the fact that they had absolutely no hiring system whatsoever. And so Jack's cousin's son needed a job. Okay, bring him on. Or Sally's friend's mother needs a job. Okay, we'll bring her on. And I figured out through calculation that I do, that their turnover was 80%, 80%. And it was costing them $250,000 a year to just move on with that. And that was what was killing their profit margin big time.
So I think that example that you're just sharing with us, and thank you for bringing such a practical example, that may not be the majority of companies, hopefully, but you were referring to, you know, the cost of how much it costs a company, even with a minimum wage employee. You said it costs $10,000 to replace that employee. But I want to go back to what you said at the very beginning, because you were saying something about, yes, you're a retention specialist, but really what you are saying is it's not about retention. It's about hiring the right people for the job, yes, getting the right people on the bus, and then I'm assuming getting the right people into the seats where they need to be. So tell us a little bit more about that from a hiring perspective. How do you guide your clients about hiring effectively?
Okay, well, there's always a before you hire them, or a before you even put your system together. One of the things that I have found that is really critical, and even though many companies think they've done this, they may not have done it thoroughly. And that is building a foundation. And I look at 4 specific corners. And it starts with number 1 being your purpose. So the question is, why are you in business anyway? What is driving your deepest gut feeling as to what your purpose is? And I sort of slap it together a little bit with a North Star. You know, the voyagers in the past, they could always rely on that North Star, and then they knew they were going in the direction. Well, that's what your purpose does. It has to be so clear, squeaky clean clear, that it doesn't matter whether we're going through COVID or typhoons or whatever, or beautiful sunshine, and that purpose is always going to be the figure that draws you forward no matter what. Then the second thing you need to do is to decide, okay, how are we all going to work together? What behaviors, that's that 90% under the water, what behaviors are absolutely critical for us all to work together? So that helps to build the culture. And also, you make a list. It has to be written down. It's not just, well, I want everybody to be unbiased. I want everyone to be respectful. I want everyone to communicate openly. Those are great, but it has to be, how are they going to be demonstrated? Mm-hmm. You know, how can I demonstrate those? The third thing is your core values. These are the core values, the qualities that not only you as the owner, but all the management team embody. And you all collaborate and say, yes, these are the things that are the most important to us. The last one is vision. So what will bring you all together? Mm-hmm. So those 4 foundational parts have to be done before you can even think, who do I want to work here? Mm-hmm. And, you know, with COVID, so many people have had to stop and rethink their business. They've maybe pivoted. Some of them have tossed their business aside and said, let's start anew. You may be a business of just one person, yourself, or you may have 30,000 working for you, or hundreds of thousands working for you. But if you don't have these 4 foundational principles, you're not going to be able to find the right people to fit those important factors for your company. And
Mm-hmm.
once you've got a vision and your values, that's what equals your culture. So when everybody is aligned, and that's part of the process that I teach management, is how to, I help them, I facilitate them with their purpose, the behaviors, values, and vision if they want that, or they can certainly do it on their own. My advice, and CEOs and business owners are going to scoff at this, you really need to sit down in a quiet, unrelated to business place. Go away, even if it's sitting at the park watching the ocean waves, or going to a hotel, or wherever it might be, where you're quiet and you can start to list, what is your purpose? What's your North Star? What behaviors how do you want people to work together? What qualities do you want them to embody? And then what will bring you all together through your vision?
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, in my studies, and I'm an authority on multiple generations, these 4 foundations will speak louder to the younger generations and also the older ones. So
Mm-hmm.
it's,
I was just going to ask you if there is an impact depending on the generation of the team members and which generation they belong to or feel they belong to, and how they perceive particularly these 4 pillars that you were talking about. Do you have some thoughts
yeah,
on that?
absolutely. So just so you and your audience understands, by 2025, which is not that far away, 3 out of 4 employees are going to be under 45 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the oldest millennial, give or take, where you research, is going to be 41 this year.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes typically from about 25 to 41 years of age right now. And then Gen Z is younger, and they were born around 1997 and beyond. You know, they are really different generations. So everybody thinks differently. They have, their work ethics are different. Millennials are definitely, they're very creative, but they're also an age where many are getting married, maybe have families. And so their mindset is, how can I take care of my families? But also it's, hey, if you don't respect me, you don't make me your chum, I'm out of here. and sadly, that still works for some. And many will attempt to start up their own businesses because they don't find those kinds of 4 corners of the foundation being practiced in business. And so if they want to, they just will decide, I'd rather work for myself. And what's really interesting, both of my children are millennials, excuse me, and they both work for themselves. Mm-hmm. They haven't always, but that's what they do. And they said, I'd rather be a boss than deal with all the politics and the lack of respect and stuff that does come out when you're frustrated.
Mm-hmm. So would you then say that the younger generation, millennials and even younger, are more likely or more easily going to step into the unknown and start on their own business? I mean, situations have changed too. Yes. In the past, you couldn't really easily be a contractor or a freelancer. It was limited to certain professions, but wasn't really as broadly available as it is now. And with COVID, of course, that has intensified. A lot of people are working remotely anyway. Yeah. So, that's going to shift things again.
That's right. However, a lot of people are going out, if they are younger, they're going out because the alternative just isn't available to them. Mm-hmm. But my background, when I started working as a young adult, I was a teacher and I taught business. And one of the things that I realized way back then was that 8 out of 10 people were unhappy in their jobs. And I was as happy as I could be. I was given full rein to design my own curriculum, and we had fun, and kids enjoyed learning. So I was what do you mean people aren't happy in their jobs? 8 out of 10, well, that's what created my passion, Petra, to change that statistic. And so I started by working on teenagers and then young adults at university. And now I'm working with business owners and leaders who are saying, well, that didn't work. I don't know what to do now. You know, and everybody's pointing fingers at each other. Now we've got 5 generations who possibly could be working under the same roof, and then COVID on top of it. There are, the good thing regarding generations is when you boil it all down, there are about 30 different characteristics they all want within a company. So they just don't know what they are. If young people come to a company and say, I want a job, well, some are going to just say, well, I'm not sure what I want to do. And nobody's out there to teach them who they're going to be when they grow up, or where they're best suited. Likewise, companies they're so busy concentrating on their job. If they don't have an HR system, they're really going to have struggles because there's no policies in place. There's no system, and that is really key.
Mm-hmm. So we talked about hiring principals so that we get the right people on the bus. Mm-hmm. And now you're starting talking a little bit more about the processes. So let's think about a new team member comes on board. What is the best way to onboard those team members, particularly when we're thinking the challenges that we're dealing with right now?
Okay, well, I have a few, I'll keep it more brief. So onboarding, and this is just my opinion based on what I've practiced, as well as the number of interviews I've had with HR managers and the research I've done. I'm a nerd when it comes to research. So as far as I'm concerned, when you've boiled it down to maybe your 3 people on the short list, your onboarding should actually, at least some of what you would do in onboarding should be part of that final interview. So the last thing you want is saying, okay, Petra, you're in, you'll start on Monday. And then you find out that you're not on eye to eye on salary, or you don't like the benefits, or your job is not going to progress as much as you want, or you don't want to work for 6 different managers. So all of that needs to be brought up and displayed in that final interview. So I have never heard of that before by other HR managers, but that's how I operate. So you discuss the protocols, expectations, salary negotiations, discuss how your culture, how people act around here, what the core values are in your behaviors and how they're embodied. I always ask them very open-ended, challenging scenarios that typically we've found in a business, might not be ours, and say, how would you react to this situation and how would you resolve it? And then you listen really carefully, because that is going to be the 90% that's hidden under the water with that iceberg. And you're going to be able to do a little mental checklist. Do they have the values? Do they share the behaviors? And competencies. So competencies are not just your skills and strengths, but also your behaviors, and that's what you're looking for. So that's part of the interview process, but that almost seals the deal for who you're going to choose. Then once you've chosen them and they've accepted, then what you need to do before the job begins is make sure that your agreement is prepared. You've already negotiated a salary and when what they're doing, and any paperwork that needs to be signed. Then the third thing is determine, usually in the methods I use, I'm certified in competency-based management, and I've had experience with that for about 20 years. And man, instead of you training people to get their weak areas up, no, you hire someone to do those weak areas. So they're complementing each other. Put your money where the investment is going to raise their strengths to a higher level, higher competency. So training, you need to make sure that they've understood the policy and culture training, the job training, make sure there's a buddy or a supervisor, and stipulate how long that training is going to be, and that you've got both cohorts seeing eye to eye. Review the highlights of the handbook, because honestly, they will never read it. The benefits, paperwork, and education. Make sure you take them on a facility tour, introduce them to all the cohorts, the executive and the teams. And then when they arrive on that first day, so all of that is done beforehand, I love to suggest that, there's no balloons and banners and a big band as they walk in the door. However, one of the most valuable things for them and the company is for you to take a picture with their smartphone up against your company logo or company name, and you take a picture with their camera of them, and so that they can put out, guess what? I'm working for company ABC, and this was the best day ever. And then, of course, you can use it as well to introduce them to the rest of the company and your clients if you wish. I love to say, hey, give them a swag bag full of all the papers and pens and name tags and things like that they're going to need for their desk. Maybe a coupon saying you get your birthday off with pay, or coffee and a muffin brought to them to their desk at the coffee break time. It could be a coffee meeting with the owner for a discussion that's meaningful between the two, and just really get to know them. So that first day is really special. It's not just, hey, there you go, there's your desk. Hank, Petra's coming in. She's going to be doing such and such. Have a good day. Because I've certainly experienced that. Here's your office. There's your filing cabinets. We'll see you in 2 weeks. And it was, can I have a file? Yeah, they're somewhere in here. You go find them. And, companies, sometimes very small offices, doctors, for example, are, if they need to replace a medical office assistant and they're desperate, there's no training. There's a contract you sign, and that's it. If you don't come with all the skills necessary, you're going to leave, and you're not going to do a good job, and the doctor will be paying $30,000 to replace you.
But now, of course, we want to, change that, or we want to provide some insights here about how to not do those mistakes. So what do you think are the best ways for onboarding new team members? Now, particularly nowadays, where some companies cannot even have the team member come into the office. So some of the things that you were talking about, maybe luxury items that they can't do, or they have to do them in a different way. All of it is possible. Photo with a screenshot is possible. All those things are possible, but just be creative about it. But now we want to take that person through how to do the workaround here, not about learning what they are doing, but more how to do these things here, because hopefully they were hired for the competency, for the work that they are needing to do, but how to do things around here. What are your insights, your experiences of onboarding team members?
Well, it differs, believe me. It really does. There are many large corporations that don't have the time to donate, whether it's online or on Zoom kind of thing, or whether it's even in the office, and they just say, go to this link and read all the policy manuals and your training and protocols, and you'll find it there. Some will add, and there's tests at the end of each section. So that puts fear into them, but there's no engagement in case there's questions or they don't understand something. And because we're in a mosaic world of employment, you never know really if that person's going to understand completely what they're reading. Not only that, many of the younger generations, honestly, and they would agree, have about an 8 to, well, maybe a 2 minute to 8 minute span of attention. And it's not because they're ADHD, it's because they're bored. They would much rather have a face-to-face conversation. And so a lot of the onboarding can be done in a group setting. And it doesn't matter that you've got a secretary and a custodian and a VP, person of sales in there. Put them all there. Disney's one of my favorite models, and they bring everybody of every rank into the onboarding recruiting or the onboarding session, where they all meet each other. They talk about what's important for the company. Then they talk about what's important for clients, all of that kind of thing. Everybody now is totally used to Zoom. I've just been accepted to teach at a university. And so we had not an onboarding the other day. We had hey, let's meet, let's get together for a fun night. And we had questions of getting to know each other. There were 3 new cohorts going to be teaching. It was all fun. They used games and spin wheels and all kinds of things and different questions. We got to learn who was there, what they taught, that kind of thing. And even though it might be months and months before I ever step into the university, it was wonderful to know that it broke the ice. Everybody, they gave me a chance to introduce myself, that kind of thing. There are always better ways. And if our people who really, companies invest the most money into their people, they've got to treat them as if they are the most important commodity or asset to the company. And so you need to take that time. You need to create a talent system that's going to work for you and to keep your people. They just want to be treated as a valuable person who will be able to use their skills and be recognized. And I don't mean, buy them a car. I'm talking about saying, I read your report the other day. Great job. Good start. Well done. And then off you go.
So if I hear you correctly, then in the onboarding, you're predominantly really thinking about getting the person on board to the team versus, really job related. How do you run your reports, or how do you complete your repetitive tasks? It's much more about getting the person enrolled in the organization. So we've hired the right fit. We know they've got the skill set. We know they have the aptitude to do the jobs. We know that they have a good fit for our values, our purpose. Now in the onboarding, we're kind of welcoming them to the family in some ways to make them feel comfortable, to reduce their stress levels, and so to give them the platform on which they can be successful.
That's right. And in there, it's also the training buddy or the supervisor. So it will be, might be at the end of each day or at the beginning of each day, they meet with the supervisor. Here's what you're doing today. And with Zoom, it's wonderful. You share all the reports. This is what it looks like. This is what you're responsible for. If they're working with high-tech machinery, well, that might not be done from home. But there's always a learning curve. And one of my it's so simple, it's embarrassing. But if you want to train someone and be certain that you won't need to come back and make sure they've done it right after a whole day of them doing it wrong, there's a very quick process. It's first of all, you introduce and describe your task and show them. So you use your speech and your hands or whatever to show them exactly what you do and why and how important that is to the company. Then you say, okay, now you tell what you just heard and do what you just saw to me. And so you are observing them and learning what they have learned to ensure that they've done it properly. And if they've missed a step, the right thing to say, the positive thing to say is, that was really great. So positive. When you actually finish this job or do the third step, I want you to pay attention to this point because that is really important to make sure the rest works. Okay, so would you like to do it again from the start? And so they do it again from the start, having learned that that third point is really important. And then you can say, you've got it. I feel really confident that you don't need a lot of supervision, but feel free to always come back to me, phone me, email me, text me, and I'll come to your aid when you need it.
Yeah, so it's all about being there, showing it at the beginning, having the person go through that repetition, having them to teach it back, which is a good sign to understand if the other person has gotten the process in place. But then also, I really like what you said, be there for them when they need it.
Yes.
Now, what role do you see virtual training play in onboarding of new staff?
Well, I alluded to the fact that,
You like in person. Yes, I know.
Oh, I do, because, it's not just because we've not been able to see physical people and right sitting beside us in a chair or on the couch or something. It's the fact that what's really important to all people of all ages is that personalization, and to take away any fear that you may do the wrong thing and get fired, because people do have fears. They've just been hired into a fabulous job and they want to do a good job. But if you're not available, if the supervisor's not available to ask a question to or anything like that, they just say, well, I'll see you at 4:45 today, and if you've got any questions, then tell me. Well, what if you make a mistake all the way through? You've just ruined an entire day, maybe something very, very important. So that personal touch. Training on the job can take anywhere from a week to 3 months to get up to the same speed as that person who left. And that needs to be recognized. Goals need to be shared specifically. So, those SMART goals, when I was going into management of a large organization, I was a division manager. I asked my interviewer, I said, what are you hoping for me to achieve within the first 6 months? And she was really surprised that I would ask her that question, but it was really important for me to know. And so she was very specific, because we had to get it done within 6 months. I was going to be evaluated based on what she wanted and what I was going to produce. And it gave me a clear idea of what I needed to be accountable for by then. So I achieved it because that was a mutual goal. And I always say, how often do you want to meet? Do you want me to report weekly or monthly? What is it that you want? So leaving no questions for either. And I always suggest, if you are the trainer or the supervisor or leader or HR person, or you're the hiring person, whatever you are, it's your responsibility to make sure that every moment of that person's work life is going well. I even say, if you're going to communicate, the main thing you need to do is do it often. Hey, how's your day going so far? Do you need any help? Do you have a question? No? Okay, carry on. It can be that communication in the hall. It doesn't need to be come for a meeting and make it really serious. It's just, that's what the generations all want. They want authentic communication. If there's a problem that's being concerning, that's the CEO is concerned about, you never know what person in your employment is going to say, you know what, I've had that experience before and this is what we did. Would this work in this case? Train your people to think, don't bring me a problem, bring me a solution to the problem. And that's how I treat my clients when they say, our profit margin's going down and I don't know why. Well, I figure out why. And that's one of the things I'm really, really good at is, what's dragging you down? What is the core issue that we need to resolve? And then let's look at maybe 4 opportunities that you could consider. And I'm usually the one that I recommend.
Okay, so for everybody who will contact you, they know exactly where this is going. So thank you so much, JoAnne, for sharing your insights with regards to retention, which really isn't about retention, it's more about hiring. For how do you hire is more about your 4 pillars. And then also in order to get people really into your organization and perform to the highest possible, to look at the whole onboarding process as a relationship development, which requires personal touch. In one of my future blogs, we will talk about blended learning, virtualization, etc., because I do see an opportunity there to take some of the onboarding into the virtual space. But I do not disagree with you that the personal touch, the personal connection is really important, maybe now so more than ever. Now, I just want to, before we close our call today, I wanted to ask you if there is any resource that you might have available for the listeners to learn more about the topic and to be able to get in touch with you.
Absolutely. There's a wonderful piece that I have on my website. It's called The 3 Unspoken Reasons Your Best Employees Leave. And it will be insightful, but it will also allow you to say, okay, gotta avoid that so that people don't leave. There are many, many more reasons than 3, but I have chosen the 3 that I think impact the people and the leaders the most, because they're easy to fix. So the article, it's a lot of research on my part, tells you what they are and what to do about it.
Awesome. So, and they find that on your website?
Yes.
JoAnneMarlow.com.
It's a free download. And, if any of your listeners would like to set up a half-hour conversation with me, if they've got a challenge, they can also click on Let's Have a Chat. And there's no obligation, no hard sales. It's just let me see if I can be a creative resolution for a challenge that you might have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, JoAnne. Thank you for your time today, for sharing your wisdoms, for sharing your gifts. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you, Petra. It's been a delight. Thanks so much.
Thank you.